Yeah, he was trying to think of a good part. Heaven is a place on earth.
Heaven is a place on earth. I was also quickly reading the talking points for the first time.
All right, here we go then.
Excellent.
Mandated testing as of the 11th of January, that's Tuesday. Jockeys will have to have a lateral flow test, or personnel entering the weighing room area will have to lateral flow before doing so. It's kind of late in the day, but trying to keep up to date with Omicron, government protocol, spread of the virus, etc. Where are we at with this?
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of weird, isn't it? Somebody said the other day, which was, I don't know when it was, like 2 weeks ago, the first time anyone had mentioned it, why have no jockeys had COVID? Well, of course they must have done, but we must have just not heard about it. Like, if you're a self-employed person, you know, we know already in this country there's no proper statutory sick pay. People can't afford to stay at home generally. And if you're self-employed and you're thinking, well, I'll just work outside, I'll just go in and ride my one horse of the day if I'm a more struggling jockey, and then I'll just leave immediately afterwards. Of course they're going to do that, aren't they? So that must have been happening. I think that generally racing's done quite well in terms of COVID. You know, the no saunas and the one meeting a day and the getting people to leave as soon as they finish riding and all that all of that's been great. It's kind of surprising they haven't had mandatory, at least lateral flow testing up until now. It's about time they did it, probably. I don't imagine the jockeys will be totally happy with it, because they'll feel like people are, you know, they're self-employed and somebody's meddling in their life.
The interesting thing, of course, is that the mood music changes so quickly out of government from day to day that when this was first put in place, or the idea was first put in place, everyone was saying, right, test, Omicron's going wild, we're all going to lock down again. Now, fast forward a week, and we've had to delay this a week because we ran out of lateral flow tests. The mood music from the government's totally different. They're saying we're coming to the end of COVID.
We're obviously not coming to the end of it.
But
of course, the other thing
that's what they're putting out. They're saying you don't test unless you're symptomatic.
Well, the other thing, of course, that's in the news this morning is that you're going to have to pay for lateral flow tests.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
This is a tax on self-employed people, basically. Because, you know, employed people...
Well, no one's going to test, are they?
Presumably employed people, the employer's going to pay, but if you're self-employed, you've got to pay yourself.
Yeah, and people aren't going to do that. So they're saying don't test unless you're symptomatic. So again, that's what I mean. It's now this looks at right angles to what the government are saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, on we go. Dan Skelton, it was reported in last weekend's Sunday Times by David Walsh that Dan Skelton was going to be charged under the trainer's code of conduct for a breach of the trainer's code of conduct, and then that was fleshed out in the Racing Post and said it might be 2 charges. No charges have been forthcoming that we know of, i.e. it hasn't been released to us, and we were expecting a statement from the NTF Tuesday, I think. That didn't come either, so that's gone a bit quiet. Difficult for us to comment on the specifics of the case, but there are some wider points I know you wanted to raise.
Well, there's a couple of things. I didn't really understand why this... It goes back to the same thing that we always have in racing, is that we don't have one body that oversees racing. You know, I said to somebody was saying to me, oh, you know, this seems to have taken forever. Why is it dragged on? Were they hoping that these owners would just leave the sport and go away and keep quiet about it? And now they've had to really bring the BHA kicking and screaming into realising they've got to do something about it. I think the BHA would say, well, it's not really our business. The buying and selling of horses is not something that we have jurisdiction over.
There are issues there that are well covered in their 17-year-old code of conduct. So the BHA have a mechanism in place, and they originally said no case to answer. They've re-looked at it.
But they might argue that this should have been dealt with by a court system and not really by a regulator, I guess. I don't know, I did talk to somebody about it who had a bit of an insight into it, and they said to me that, you know, one of the things that Nick Rust's time at the BHA, one of the more frustrating things for him was that he wanted racing to totally control everything to do with the buying and selling of horses.
Yeah, so that there was the BHA would govern the bloodstock industry.
And that he was frustrated by, you know, resistance from the auction houses, the agents, the Racehorse Owners Association, and the
TBA.
The Thoroughbred Breeders Association. So, you know, perhaps if there had been that kind of control, this case wouldn't have, you know, it wouldn't have played out the way it has. Just a really quick thing. I know we've gone over the time, but I also, somebody said to me, why don't we have like a logbook, like you would with a car for horses? That we have the owner has to be written down, and when it changes ownership, it's very hard at the moment to know who owns horses. There are loads of horses where the owner that appears on the race card is not the real owner. That's a bit sketchy, isn't it? It's a bit dodgy.
I wish you luck with that one. Robbie Dunne has now read, as have we all, or most of us, the full written reasons for his 18-month suspension, 3 months suspended, and he has until 7 days from those written reasons to appeal. No announcement of an appeal yet. Did you learn anything new from these written reasons?
Well, it kind of reiterated a lot of stuff, didn't it? I mean, it kind of reiterated that his defence wasn't a great defence. That, exactly the whole kind of rancid thing that got played out in a slightly dopey way by people that didn't read the whole sentence and just read one word. But, this defence was that this was quite standard procedure, and people were always swearing and shouting at each other and threatening to, ride people off the course and all this kind of stuff, and that's quite normal. And obviously, the counter side to that was to say that if that was the culture, then that would be rancid. It seems like the what are they called? The committee, the people that made the judgment, the panel. They very much had that view that this was a poor defence. I mean, they spoke that they didn't want to talk too much about the culture, that wasn't their job. It was just to judge this case, which I think is correct. But that also makes you think, is the culture really what's going to happen about the culture? The case is gone now. It's finished. It was a few weeks ago. We've had the judgment. It may yet go to appeal. It could go to appeal. I don't think it will, but I mean, it might do. It feels to me like it won't, but I don't know. I'd be interested to see what conversations are taking place behind the scenes about changing the culture. Is the culture just going to change? Is it by a process of osmosis because of the case and people, lots of jockeys waking up and thinking, yeah, actually that wasn't really right the way we used to do things or whatever? I don't know. It probably draws a line under a sad case, but I don't really feel like the case has done the job in terms of changing everything in the weighing room.
OK, well, we will wait to see whether Robbie Dunne and his team post an appeal this week. You want to talk about admission prices at racecourses, the midweek meetings in particular?
I'm going to say something really quickly.
Keep it to 2 minutes.
I'm going to say something really quickly at the start, because this was I was finding the whole thing sort of a bit of a quirky dichotomy. So I saw somebody at Musselburgh saying, oh, God, it's really sad, it's New Year's Day and we don't have the 7,000 people that we normally would have. And I saw somebody at Chepstow saying, oh, it's 27th and we don't have the 9,000. And of course, that is sad. We'd like to see everybody going racing. And of course, it's great that Cheltenham had, whatever they had, 30,000. And all of that I understand all of that, but we are in a country where, we're up to 150,000 deaths now, which puts us with India, Brazil, Russia and America, all also run by right-wing demagogues. So, we have to remember that. To me, personally, I think it's, racing can be a little bit insulated in its own bubble, and you have to kind of feel like maybe it's not a great thing that there were 30,000 people at Cheltenham on New Year's Day. And the idea that, well, the Welsh government are bad and you could just drive down the road, and I don't, that seems a bit sad when so many people have died. But I also don't really take the argument that whether it's all outside and there was all fresh air and everything like that, because obviously the business plan on Welsh National Day is to get everyone to drink 8 pints of £10 a pint lager and standing next to each other.
You've got 20 seconds to talk about what you actually wanted to talk about.
What I wanted to talk about was I just was looking at admission prices of ARC tracks midweek. Lingfield £22, Kempton £13, Wolves £14.50. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. The comparison, the ARC track is nearly twice as much as the others. If they're so desperate to get punters in, and it really saddens them that Chepstow is empty, why do they charge so much midweek to go to Lingfield?
Beautifully done. And on we go to the Racing League, which is very much an ARC concept now, particularly. It's run at their racecourses. And from being what it described, and Jeremy Ray described to me earlier in the week, as having started as a positive disruptor, as he likes it, it's now sort of been folded in to not the establishment, but it's been folded into the sort of racing firmament, if you like, with coverage on ITV and very much ARC taking a front seat in driving the deal forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, I can't say I watched every night of the Racing League with great intent. I couldn't name 3 of the teams, and I have no idea who won it. But having said that, if it brought new people into the sport, it's a great thing. And it was a load of extra money coming in. I understand the arguments that it didn't go to everybody. They've had a win, haven't they? They must be very happy. ITV is a big thing for them. They're putting loads more money in again. They've learned some lessons from last time. I don't really see the negativity towards it.
But it struck me that if you want to get a concept off the ground, you can't really do it, or you can't sustain it unless you become part of the fold, if you like. You've got to, do you see what I'm saying? Because it was an independent. Yes. It was an independently run entity that was using the sports stages on which to perform. Actually, that's quite hard to do on your own. You kind of need to be aligned to the racecourse group, or you also
think, I mean, they must have lost quite a lot of money last year, and they're going to have to get it to a stage where it starts making money at some stage. It's probably not going to make money in season 2. But
I don't think I don't think that the onus is on it to make money in and of itself now. Being part of a wider.
Exactly. So it makes it easier for it to become sustainable.
Correct. Irish insurance. This is to do with.
This was one that got added very late. I was looking at this and thinking, what's this about?
You don't know what I'm talking about, do you?
Well, it's got to be something to do with the Freddie Talicki case.
No. Would you like me to tell you? This is to do with.
Oh, come on, help me out.
Hunts and point-to-points.
Yes.
Being significantly threatened by the Irish
think I heard
insurance
Jane
companies.
Maggan
Yes,
talking
exactly.
About it.
Not wanting to insure them. Anyway, there is a putative deal in place now that will ensure that those point-to-points that were threatened, more in the northern half of the country, more than the northern half of the southern part of Ireland, if you like, will hopefully take place. But there could be a 2 or 3 week hiatus. But what it showed was how unsteady, if you like, the bedrock,
the ecosystem, because obviously the trading in point-to-point
is so important.
Is very important to national hunt racing on both sides of the Irish Sea.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was likely to undermine and threaten that ecosystem. And it did occur to me that, should they be so heavily reliant on a sport that is basically A, amateur, and B relies on such a heavy volunteer force?
Well, if Irish point-to-pointing, I don't know, for some reason was just completely banned tomorrow.
Yeah, well, a lot of people would go.
What would happen?
Well, a lot of people would go bankrupt very quickly. There would be an awful lot of stock that needed a home, and a lot of that stock would have to be sold at cost.
But all of these people that are horse traders in Ireland would just find a different way of operating, wouldn't they? I mean, adapt to somehow. I don't know.
Possibly, but I think it exhibited the fact that if you're going to build your house on this, that house needs some solid foundation. So, well done to all of those who've got together to get some sort of insurance deal on the table. But I think it is a few weeks away.
But that's a temporary solution.
Yeah. So they may yet have to think about it. Right, on we go.
Okay.
You enjoyed that one, didn't you?
Well, I didn't. Yeah, I do see the point. Yeah.
The new BHA. You're all right with this one?
I think so. I read this stuff.
Good. The British Horse Racing Authority, Ruth Quinn, the director of racing this week, has announced proposals for a jumps blueprint in order to make particularly the period between now and Cheltenham more competitive, and to incentivise horses to run a bit more during the jump season, and to make sure that not everything is all about the Cheltenham.
All of that is great. All of that is great, and who could disagree with any of that? One thing I did think was there was a sort of an assertion that one of the reasons that people send their horses to Ireland, like UK owners send their horses to be trained in Ireland in the last few years, is because the prize money's so much better. isn't it much more just that they have way more winners at the Cheltenham Festival? Isn't that like I don't know how we can measure what the reasons are without just going and asking a load of them, but. Like at the end of the day, yes, it's quite correct. Obviously, the prize money is much better in Ireland, but winning races midweek is a lot harder because there's a lot less races, and you know the novice races are much more competitive, and the graduation chases and whatever, you know, they just get way more runners, and you know the decent Leopardstown races pre-Christmas are much harder to win. I don't know. Did you think that basing it on that assertion was a bit off, maybe?
What, the fact that the lack of success at Cheltenham has prompted this?
Yeah, or basing the whole thing on the assertion that the reason people are sending them to Ireland is because prize money is better there. So if we just make prize money better here, is because they'll bring them all back over here.
The reason they're sending them to Ireland is because Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, before Henry de Bromhead came along, were mopping up a load of the races at the Cheltenham Festival, and they had a great chance of winning at Cheltenham.
So if we just put our prize money up to the same levels as them, they're not all going to rush back, are they?
So the two things, what you're saying is, you agree with the concept, but the reasoning behind the concept may be invalid.
Possibly. I mean, it could be. I don't know. It's quite hard to measure, isn't it, really?
Those were this week's talking points. Subscribe to Racing TV to be notified when more Luck on Sunday videos are appearing online. And don't forget to join me for the show every Sunday morning from 9 o'clock with the best guests.